So, you're a developer as well, and you're doing some stuff that's ground up. So why ground up versus continuing on the value add?
Well, this is really a continuation of our strategy about 3 years ago. I mean, I knew that the market was changing. Obviously, no one can really predict exactly when that was going to happen, nor could anyone time what we're going through right now. But I think everybody knew that we were coming to a turning point. And so, we had to change our strategy a little bit. San Diego, very competitive market. The yields were going down quite a bit, right? Cap rates were dropping quite a bit. So the strategy was, okay, well, in order for me to pursue higher yielding investments, I'm going to have to take on more risk. And that meant, I would have to go out of state, right? So the first thing that we had to do there is create a management company, because all things being equal, our greatest risk came down to management, right? I mean, if you could operate, if you're a good operator in San Diego, you'd be a good operator in pretty much any state. But because of the distance, the greatest exposure we had was management. So we had to fix that problem first, which we did. And we took some lumps on some initial investments that we have that are now some of our best performers. But we use those investments really in other states to refine our management company. And so once we dialed that in, and the objective was, okay, and I told my team, I said, look, we're going to use this as an opportunity to create a management company where we can operate assets from anywhere in the nation and to do it remotely. So 3 years ago, we were operating remotely. Okay. 3 years ago, we started that quest, building process and systems, and then using people from really different parts of the world, right, to be able to operate remotely and also in different states. So now we've done that. And so when COVID hit, our business didn't change at all. In fact, it just got more competitive. But the idea was to pursue higher yielding investments out of state, right? And we mitigated our risk with better management, because initially our management process, it fell down, it broke. So we were really exposed there. So we had to fix that. Now that we have, and then to go into high density markets like San Diego and LA for development projects, right? So to take on more risk with development to increase yield, but also because of the density, I felt that there was less risk doing that, right? Because of the housing constraint or some of the supply issues. So that was the strategy. It still is. It really hasn't changed. I think now we're just in a different environment. That's worked really well for us. And so we're continuing to move forward on that basis. Now we just have to be a little bit more patient. Fortunately, we have projects in our pipeline. We have about 140, roughly about 150 units in our pipeline right now. But a lot of that product, low cost basis, right? So it makes sense to still move forward in this market. I think the idea there being is, when everyone's making a left, you make a hard right. So I don't mind going through the planning process, right? The entitlement process even, as long as our basis is low, especially in some of the markets that we're in, like San Diego. It'll take us 14 months to get a project approved, or 12, right? If we're lucky. I'm just being, I don't even want to say conservative, because in this market, we don't really know what that's going to look like, but say 14 months, say even 16 months. So by the time we're ready to pull permits, right, in theory, construction costs should ease a little bit. And I think that's going to come in the form of I'm not really looking at labor. That I think that's going to start easing too, but the cost to manufacture product, I believe, is going to go way down for some of the reasons we mentioned earlier, right? So for example, when you're in a market where you have an oversupply of labor, okay, the employer at that point is in control, right? Well, when you talk about companies that are manufacturing products that we used to build, they're fairly large companies, right? A lot of influence in the market with employees. So I feel that when that labor cost goes down, it's going to get cheaper to manufacture products to build. And by the time we're ready to build, the hope there being is that, we have a lower cost to build as a result of that. So that's the idea behind construction. But I think in high density markets, you have some really good opportunities for smaller infill product. And there's some opportunity to mitigate your downside risk just because of the supply constraints. And, in different states, predominantly for cash flow or higher yielding investments.